get it going. And we are recording this, so we will put this on the web for those who are unable to join us. For those who might not know, I am Kara Kumari. I'm Assistant Commissioner of Communications and External Affairs for DIDD. I am merely the host for this event. I want to introduce you to the folks that we have on the phone with us today. We are excited to be providing you with some information about providing services in the Katie Beckett program for Part B, and we're glad you joined us. I'm joined today by Kimberly Black, our Deputy Director of Program Operations, Bo Hickman, who is our Deputy Director of Intake and Case Management, and is also kind of the lead on the Katie Beckett program, not kind of the lead, is the lead on the Katie Beckett program. And then we've got also in the Operations Department, Sandra Wise, and John Hamrick to assist in answering any questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim Black to get this presentation started and lead us through this.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Like Kara said, I'm Kimberly Black. I am the Deputy Director of Program Operations, and I'm going to be talking to you today about Katie Beckett Waiver Part B. This will primarily be focused on the services. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. And it doesn't look like I have sharing rights here.
Okay, we'll get that taken care of. Okay, Kim, you should be good. And in what appears to be the theme of the week, apparently we're having some technical difficulties with Kim, but so hopefully she'll be able to get back on. If not, Kim, if you need to email me the final version of the presentation, I'll be happy to walk through it for everyone. All right, let me see if I can find the presentation somewhere in my inbox, and if so, then I will go ahead and do the presentation. I just do not think I have the final version of it. So if somebody can email that to me on the team, I will be happy to do that. Apparently cold weather must make all of our computers not so great, because I can't remember a time where we've had more technical difficulties in 1 week than now. Like I said, I apologize. I'm just waiting to get a copy of the presentation, and then I will make sure to walk us through this. Well, Linda, now that you mention it, my daughter is actually upstairs doing remote school right now. So, but that doesn't appear to be affecting my internet connection, hopefully. Every now and again, I can hear her asking questions of her teacher. But you know, we also did decide to upgrade our internet connection so that we could all operate our various Zoom and WebEx devices at the same time. Trying to see if I have the presentation yet. And Kim's internet went down because, like I said, this is what we expect the week of before the holidays. But we are getting that up and going, and we'll be once I get the presentation, we'll be doing it. And we appreciate your patience. We are doing I'll do some announcements while I've got everyone on. We are doing office hours next week, so that. Or not next week. We are doing officers tomorrow on Friday, so that we can continue to have the conversation we started yesterday, and we will now get started. I'm going to share my screen. All right, Kimberly is actually back on with us. So I am going to see if her internet will hold and she can go through this. If not, I do have the presentation now, so I can do that. Tell you what, Kimberly, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and that no, you've got share rights. So if you can share, but if for some reason you go down, I'll just step in and take over.
Okay, I apologize for the connectivity issues. Like you said, that does seem to be the theme of the week. So hopefully you can see my screen now. I'm just going to get my slideshow pulled up on the other side so I can see my notes. Okay. So again, apologize for the technical difficulties, but today's presentation is for providers who are interested in providing services in the Katie Beckett program for Part B. An overview, we are going to have about 4 sections in this presentation. We're going to go over the general structure of the program and the operational goals, just a little bit about KB, service criteria, training requirements, and then becoming a provider. So this first section is going to give us a general overview of the review process that our plans reviewers will be looking at when service requests are made. So I didn't realize everything was going to come on one at a time. So Katie Beckett's program is for children under the age of 18 with disabilities or complex medical needs. The program is for children who are not Medicaid eligible because of their parents may make too much money, so they have too much income or assets. The program is going to provide services and or help pay for medical care that private insurance does not cover. The program has 2 parts, A and B, and they are subject to the availability of state appropriation. So the Katie Beckett program has several goals. The goals of the program are to help address inequities in the Medicaid eligibility between children who are institutionalized and children with comparable needs who live at home with their family. Another goal is to provide services in the most integrated setting consistent with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Also, the Katie Beckett program aims to support children with disabilities and complex medical needs to grow and thrive in their home and community. We aim to plan and prepare the child for transition to employment and community living with as much independence as possible and support and empower families. caring for a child with disabilities or complex medical needs at home. Some additional goals, just to provide services to help families attain financial, physical, and emotional relief, purchasing and maintaining private insurance, help filling the gaps with what private insurance will cover, and that includes essential wraparound services. We're hoping to delay the need for medical eligibility wherever possible and provide services in the most cost-effective way possible in order to serve as many children as possible within the program, within the approved program funding. So the presentation is mostly focused on Part B, but I did want to make a few notes about Part A just for your information. So Part A is going to be for the children with the most significant disabilities and complex medical needs. These are children that would qualify to receive care in a medical institution, but want to receive care at home. Up to 300 children will be served in Part A. Children in Part A will receive full Medicaid benefits such as home health services, medical equipment and supplies, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy, and other services like audiological services, non-emergency transportation, and these services, again, must be medically necessary. Part A is going to be managed by Blue Care, and each participant will have TennCare Select for their health. Now, on to Part B. So Part B is going to be, Part B of the Katie Beckett program will allow up to 2,700 children with disabilities or complex medical needs to get help through DIDD. So DIDD will be managing Part B. And it is for children with complex medical needs and disabilities who are at risk for institutionalization or maybe waiting for a slot in Part A. Part B is a Medicaid diversion program, which means that federal Medicaid funds will be leveraged to divert children from becoming Medicaid eligible. We'll be paying for the cost of the child's private insurance, and this can include a health care account card to help pay for some of the costs of things that happen, or getting reimbursed for things that cannot be purchased with the card. I'm sorry, I'm behind on my slides. So we'll be providing home and community-based services like respite or supportive home care. These types of services are often called wraparound services. And these services can be provided, but they can be self-directed or provided by a community provider. So children in Part B will not be enrolled in Medicaid, but will be able to get help from DIDD to pay for up to $10,000 a year for care and services for the child. Part B is for children birth to age 18. And these children will have medical needs that are likely to last at least 12 months or result in death and result in severe functional limitations based on medical eligibility criteria developed for specifically for children. Okay. Children in Part B are going to be enrolled on a first come, first served basis, and there must be an open slot. The child will not be able to be eligible for TennCare in order to receive support in Part B. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the actual services that are available. And these are just a few notes about the review process that our plans reviewers will be using to look at when service requests come in. We'll be using an internal operating guideline, and the review format is going to be consistent with what you're already used to in the 1915C waivers. The documents will include covered and non-covered services and checklists. So that's the same as what's in the 1915C services. Assistive technology, adaptive equipment, and supplies. These services are going to assist with maintaining functional capabilities and helping children to perform their ADLs during the day. There's also help to assist with hearing and vision loss. So some of those types of devices are assistive listening devices, large visual display services, braille screen communications, volume control telephones, for example. And it's just any device that's going to be able to increase that child's ability to perceive or control the environment and to help them communicate with others. Some of the other, you can see some of the other things that are covered here under this service, like computer equipment, adaptive workstations, prepaid and pre-programmed cell phones that are going to allow persons who are participating in employment and community integration activities without paid or natural supports who may need assistance due to accident, injury, or inability to find their way home. There will be some repairs that are covered, and any thing that's covered under assistive technology, adaptive equipment, or supplies must be recommended by a qualified healthcare professional. And of course, it's got to be medically necessary and have direct therapeutic benefit to that child. And it's not going to be able to replace any care that family members or natural supports are providing. So here you can see the rates and service codes for this particular service. It is corresponding to specialized medical equipment, supplies, and assistive technology in the 1915C waiver. So if you're already familiar with that, it's basically the same service. There's going to be a limit of $5,000 per person per calendar year. These rates are shown here, and they're also available on the DIDD website. The type of providers that will be providing this service, any DIDD provider with the service on their contract, or it may be covered by an HRA, which we talked about previously. Licensure requirements are the same as they are in the 1915C, so they'll need to be a retail or wholesale Tennessee business license or a durable medical equipment supplier license. Community integration support. So these are supports that are going to help the child do things in the community that they want to do. The service can be provided during the day or the night, so it's not like we are used to in the old days where you could only provide day services, and we've gotten away from calling them day services also. But it's not like you can just provide it during the day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Focus should be on building relationships as well as reaching goals. Community integration supports need to take place in an integrated setting, consistent with the home and community-based settings rule. Transportation is included in this service when no-cost forms of transportation are available. Activities, as always, need to be age appropriate. And some of the activities can include taking a class, joining a club, volunteering, getting healthy, maintaining health, or simply just doing something fun. So also there should be a focus on training and education for self-determination and self-advocacy or other types of training. $500 a year can go towards registration, material supplies, participation in classes, and that sort of thing. Specific goals must be stated in the ISP for this service, and there must be at least one outcome listed. As previously stated, the service must be in an integrated setting. Just as in the 1915C waiver, it cannot be provided in a sheltered workshop or any site or facility owned or operated by the provider. And again, that is consistent with the home and community-based settings rule. So it's going to be the same in the KB waiver. This service is not going to be able to replace formal education or employment, and it's not an in-home service, so it needs to be provided. It cannot be provided in the person. So the Community Integration Support Service in KB corresponds to the community participation supports in the 1915C waivers. So again, if you're already providing that service, you're familiar with it. And so there are 3 levels of support, as you can see here. For community integration, we've got a 1-to-1, 1-to-2, and a 1-to-3 ratio. And as the support ratio increases, the reimbursement rate decreases. You can see the rates and codes listed here. And again, they're on the DIDD website. So any DIDD provider, traditional provider who's chosen to provide this can also do this in KB services. And the licensure requirements are the same. So you'll need an adult day hab license from DIDD or community-based or developmental disabilities adult habilitation day facility service license or community-based license. Community transportation. This service is available when public or other no-cost community-based transportation services are available, and the person does not have access to transportation through any other means, including natural supports. The most cost-effective option for transportation should be considered first. Whenever possible, family, friends, neighbors, and co-workers, carpools, or other means of transportation should be used. There is a specific exclusion for this, so if other options are available, it would be denied as non-covered. And this service is also not available for medical appointments. This corresponds to individual transportation services in the 1915C waivers. So again, it's something you should already be familiar with if you're already providing service. In consumer direction, just to note about that, this can be used to pay someone back for gas, bus fare, taxi service, or the community provider can choose to transport the child. And like everything else, this is subject to a general $10,000 yearly cap. And for consumer direction, $225 a month is available for the service. That's just for community consumer direction. Again, the most cost-effective service should be considered. Contracted providers or any DIDD provider is chosen to provide this service, and it can be provided through PPL for self-direction. No licensure rules apply here. All right, let's talk about respite. Respite is available to a child for a short time when unpaid caregivers need a break. Reimbursement for 8 hours or less is based on 15-minute units. Greater than 8 hours of service will be reimbursed at the daily rate. Daily respite is not available in consumer direction. Here you can see the rates for 8 hours or less, the daily rate for up to 16 hours of service, and there are daily rates for 24 hours of service. Rates and codes are available on the DIDD website. And again, this corresponds to the respite that you're used to seeing in the 1950s waivers. There's going to be a limit of up to 30 days per calendar year, or there'll be a limit of 216 hours per person per year. Those limits cannot be combined, meaning that family has to pick one. Again, only hourly respite is available for consumer direction, subject to that $10,000 cap. Contracted providers will be any DIDD provider with the service on their contract who has chosen to provide KB services, and PPL will be providing this for self-direction. Again, there's no licensure requirement.
Okay, so let me get my screen up, and I'll get back to where we are, and we'll go through this. So, of course, you know, what happens in these situations is that I just got called by the, I think I've mentioned to a couple of people that my daughter had some positive cases in her class, and so she's in quarantine and doing Zoom school. And the Department of Health just called to monitor and see whether or not she had any symptoms right as this all happened. So, so I basically just had to hang up on them, but that's okay because she has no symptoms and she gets out of quarantine after the day after tomorrow. So we'll get going on this presentation. So based on what I saw from Kim's screen, she was on respite. So somebody can let me know if that is not the case, but I'm going to push on the respite right here. So first of all, with respite, any DIDD provider who has this respite service on their contract and has chosen to provide Katie Beckett services can provide this service. For people who are in self-directed services, that will go through the state's vendor for self-direction payment and management, which is PPL, Public Partnerships. There is no licensure requirement. So we'll continue to go. So supportive home care, just as a FYI, For those of you who provide services in the ECF world, you may know that this is also the equivalent of personal assistance for the DIDD world. So when we say a supportive home care in the Katie Beckett program, we're talking about that service that service that's also called personal assistance. So just a quick brief rundown of what that service provides. It is services and supports in the home and community by a paid caregiver who does not live in the family home to a person living with his or her family, that directly assists the person with activities of daily living and personal needs to ensure adequate functioning in their home and maintain community living. Also, may be provided outside of the person's home if the outcomes are consistent with the supports defined in the person's ISB, with the goal of ensuring the person's full participation and inclusion in the community. So I don't think that many of you would be surprised by that definition. This is important to know. The service cannot be approved where the paid caregiver lives in the person's home. So that is something that is similar to how it is provided in the ECF Choices program. As we talked about, it is corresponds to the personal assistance in the 1915C waivers, and it is subject to a cap of $10,000 per year, because as we've already discussed in Part B of Katie Beckett, the maximum amount of money a family receives every year is $10,000. So if a person chooses to spend all of that money on the supportive home care benefit, they are certainly in their rights to do so. For contracted providers, once again, any DIDD provider with the service on their contract and who has chosen to provide KB services can do this. Once again, when we're talking about self-directed services, that will once again go through the state's contracted management agency public partnerships, similar to how self-directed services are provided in the self-determination waiver. Licensure requirement. You need a PSSA license, the Personal Support Services Agency license, which can be issued by DIDD or the Department of Mental Health, or you can have a home health license issued by the Department of Health. Okay, now we're going to move on to minor home modifications. Minor home modifications, when we're talking about this, the definition is that this will provide repair, modification, or replacement of currently approved home modification when it's required to ensure health, welfare, and safety, and is the least costly alternative. Important that recommendation from a qualified healthcare professional is not required for this service. So just wanted to point that out. These home modifications will provide for the following. First, the minor physical modifications to the interior of the person's place of residence, necessary to ensure a person's health, welfare, and safety. Minor physical modifications, which increase the person's mobility and accessibility within the place of residence. Wheelchair ramp and modifications related to the construction or getting that ramp installed. Handrails for stairs, for outside stairs or steps, and grab bars and other devices. So those are all encompassed in this minor home modifications definition. Here's what's not provided. First of all, things that are not of direct medical or remedial benefit, things that are of general utility. A stairway lift or elevator, including installation. This is not provided by this. General maintenance or home improvement is not provided by this. And also, this cannot be used for installation, repair, or replacement of a ceiling, roof, walls, carpet, or other flooring. So those are all things that are not included in this benefit. Other things, these are also not included in the benefit. Installation, repair, or replacement of heating or cooling units or systems. So if an HVAC breaks, you can't use this money to fix it or replace it. Air or water purifiers, and driveway or installation repairs, sidewalks, fences, decks, or patios. And then it is not allowed to make any modification that increases the square footage of your residence. This minor home mods, it does correspond to, in the 1915C waivers, the Environmental Accessibility Modification Service. You'll see the codes and the service codes and the rates right there. The limits on this are different. First of all, there is a limit of $6,000 per project. And then it can only $10,000 can be spent a year, which of course is the limit in Part B. And lifetime, there is a $20,000 benefit limit on this. This also requires 2 bids from the KB interagency agreement. So 2 bids must be received for the service, and it is subject to a general cap of $10,000 per year for all services, which, as we mentioned, we already talked about. Who can do this service? First of all, contracted providers. Any DIDD provider can do this service if it is on their contract, or, and this is something different, it may be covered under the healthcare reimbursement account. So if it is an IRS deductible service, it can be used with that HRA healthcare reimbursement account and be covered under that. The licensure requirement: this person must be a contractor with the Department of Commerce and Insurance or have a home improvement license. Now we'll go to vehicle modifications. Modifications to the person or guardian's vehicle, which is routinely available for transport of the person. So the car that this person is taking, this is what we're talking about, must be recommended by a licensed OT physician or other qualified professional. So these modifications do need to be recommended by one of those people. And important, they must be necessary to accommodate the unique needs of the person, enabling full integration into the community while ensuring the health, welfare, and safety of the person, and must be of direct medical or remedial benefit. What's not covered? Exclusions include items or modifications of general utility. You cannot use this to buy or rent a car. It is not used for upkeep or maintenance of a vehicle, so you can't pay for an oil change on your car. Assistance with vehicle registration and licensing, so it cannot be used for tags or anything for that vehicle. Once again, we're talking about a cap here of $10,000 a year and $20,000 per lifetime. And as we mentioned, that $10,000 cap per year is not only the limit for this service, but really the limit for all services a year in the Katie Beckett program. Oh, and just to mention, there's the service code and the unit type. Contracted provider for PPL for self-direction. This is only self-directed through PPL, and then there is no licensure requirement.
Carol, hopefully my internet connection will hold up, but I just want to jump in here. If you keep sharing your screen, that'll be helpful, just in case I go down again. I apologize. So here, we've got several kind of non-traditional services that do not correspond with any 1915C waiver, and so they're all provided by the ARC of Tennessee. So they're going to look a little bit different than the services we've just reviewed in the PowerPoint. There's not as much detail, but I did want to mention them. And there's information about these on the DIDD website also. So we've got decision-making supports, which are going to help with understanding options to protect rights and freedom of children with disabilities as they become adults. And I may have Bo step in here just a little bit. We've got decision-making support, family, caregiver education and training, and family-to-family support. So Bo, do you want to jump in and say anything about these services?
Yes, thanks, Kim. Hey, everyone. I just wanted to have a couple of comments about these services. These are services that, unless you're familiar with them, you won't know what they are necessarily. These are not a highly utilized service across the board. Decision-making supports, those things typically are just consultative type services. I know there are providers out there for ECF who do some of these service, community support, navigation, that service specifically. I know there's multiple ECF providers along those lines. But for the family-to-family support, that really is provided outside the bounds of this cap, and it's provided by the Tennessee Disability Coalition. So we listed these services so you can see what they are. If you're interested in providing some of these services, then you can get with our provider folks to talk about how you want to apply to be a provider for some of these. These are really new services. We're still building some of these in, and so that's where we are with those today.
Thank you, Bo. If you'll go to the next slide, Kara, and so I'll have to make that correction there because all of them are not provided by the ARC of Tennessee. We got the Tennessee Disability Coalition providing family-to-family support. So I'll fix that before this goes out. If you can go to the next slide, Kara. We're just going to talk just briefly about health insurance premium assistance. Next slide. As you can see here, and we talked a little bit about this prior to, this is going to offset the cost of private insurance for families. These services families will have to submit receipts of their purchase and be reimbursed for the amounts that they spent. And so the reimbursement is not going to be able to exceed the cost of the family contribution. And it'll need to be documented in the ISP that family members are covered by the same premium. Next slide. The amount of reimbursement determined, there we go. So the amount of reimbursement is going to be determined by dividing the total premium by the total number of family members on the same policy. Again, proof is going to have to be submitted with the request, and the contracted provider for this health insurance premium assistance service is PPL for self-direction. Next slide. We've got the health reimbursement account here, which is HRA, and we've discussed a little bit about this already, but eligible medical expenses per the IRS are going to be covered under this. Costs of diagnosis, cure, mitigation, and treatment and prevention of disease, and for the purpose of affecting any part of the body or function of the body. So payments for legal medical services rendered by physicians, surgeons, dentists, and other medical practitioners, costs of equipment and supplies, diagnostic devices, medical care expenses, things like that. So they do not include expenses that are merely beneficial to general health, like vitamins or going on vacations, although that would be nice. They're going to include premiums paid for insurance that covers the expenses of medical care and the amounts paid for transportation to get medical care. Includes amounts paid for qualified long-term care services and limited amounts paid for any qualified long-term care insurance contract. Next slide. Here, there's a long list of exclusions that are also on the IRS website and not included in the TennCare rules. So I won't read them to you because you're going to receive this PowerPoint after this presentation. Next slide. And so the contracted provider type here is going to be PayFlex. Bo, I don't know if you want to say anything about PayFlex.
Thanks, Kim. So yes, PayFlex is our current contractor for flexible medical spending benefits, and so we kind of co-opted that contract with PayFlex. This is really an exciting service for folks in the Katie Beckett Part B program because it allows them maximum flexibility across their annual expenditure cap to purchase things and not really have to jump through some hoops to do that. So we're really excited about offering this. Of course, this is informational for you guys only, just so you can know about the services provided. And of course, you wouldn't be involved in this, but we would like you to know about it just because it may come up when you're supporting someone else who may be utilizing this program and this service.
Jim, you there again? Okay, I think we lost him again. So since I'm keeping up, I'm going to just keep on going. Non-traditional therapy services. Okay. First of all, we've heard about this, and this was something that was added to this program, and really because one of the things we heard when we did stakeholder meetings across the state is that families wanted an opportunity to be able to receive some of these therapy services that aren't covered by insurance, hippotherapy being a very, very popular one. So this will provide alternative methods of therapy to a person who could benefit from pursuing a non-traditional route to their therapeutic regimen. These requests are going to be reviewed, and we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at the person's unique medical needs and how this service would benefit the person. And then is it justified in the person's ISP and supporting documentation? Once again, obviously, there's a $10,000 limit, so this is a limit per day, week, month, or year, and it's subject to the general cap of $10,000. So in order to utilize this, the person must have a medical diagnosis or functional limitation involving ambulation, mobility, speech, or other health conditions that requires a therapeutic intervention. And the documentation must be provided demonstrating how the requested therapy will benefit that person's functional or treatment needs. And the service must ensure the person's health, welfare, and safety. This is a self-directed service. So we are using PPL for that. The person will, and this will be done in a reimbursement method of providing this service. So now we're going to just spend one slide talking about, if you're interested, this is where you can find some of those IOGs on this site. And then section 3. Okay, so this is Katie Beckett training. First of all, this is just some of the training that will be for Katie Beckett waiver services. The DIDD annual training plan contains those annual training requirements, and then the Katie Beckett program training plan contains one-time courses. Also, there are several enabling technology training plans available for agencies providing these services in addition to the Katie Beckett waiver. CPR and first aid will be required as classroom-based training and testing. And then training specific to the person as well will, occurs in our waivers, will also be needed. You can see that training link right there and access all of that training at that site. All right, we'll go to the next part. This is how to become a Katie Beckett provider. There are 3 paths to becoming a Katie Beckett provider. First of all, providers who are contracted with DIDD to provide the following services have already received notice to get on to PDMS and amend their provider agreements and add Katie Beckett services. So that's path 1. Path 2, providers that are contracted with DIDD and did not qualify to receive the Katie Beckett amendment to their contract, they can submit a long-term services and or clinical and ancillary services expansion application. And then agencies that are not currently DIDD providers will need to submit the new provider application for long-term services and the new provider application, or both, for clinical and ancillary services. So all of that can be found on the website. I do believe we have a link to some of that stuff on the Katie Beckett page if you're interested in learning more about that. When you look at these applications, this is what you're going to see. These are the long-term services. So, and you'll see what's on that on the long-term services application, and then you'll see also what is considered to be clinical and ancillary services and what's on that application as well. So this is where you find all of the stuff. To find the new provider application, you go to the how to become a DIDD provider site. You'll go to the providers page on the expansion if you're looking to expand applications. And if you need help, please email that email address below, or you can email the with application questions the DIDD provider email inbox. Okay, finally, here are some resources we have for you all. If you need additional resources, first of all, there are tools in action for reaching all in Tennessee, integrating supports across the life course, very important for many people, and then the mandatory reporter training through the Department of Children's Services. So that's it. So now I am going to, we do have a bunch of panelists on. I'm going to see if I can get my chat box up and see it. Okay, and see what we've got. Okay, the first question we have is the Katie Beckett training for DIDD different than the training for Blue Care? I will defer to someone on our team. Bo, do you have that answer, or is that an answer that our training team may have?
So I would say there may be some minor differences in that training scheme between what we ask for Part B and what Blue Care will require for kids enrolled in Part A. You know, you have to remember that kids enrolled in Part A are generally speaking much more medically challenged than folks in Part B. But regardless of that, those training differences should not be that different. There's probably a little bit of difference. I mean, I think we have now posted the new training requirements for Part B on the website, and I think you guys can look at those and compare those to what Blue Care may have sent you. And so that's what I would say about that. And I would ask our training staff if they have any other comments.
This is Sandra. No, I think you said it well. There may be a few little training differences, but there is, but those are noted in the Blue Care training plan in Relias.
Great, thanks a lot, Sandra. The next question was, and Sandra, you might be able to talk to this. What was under the CPR first aid on the training requirements? I went a little faster, and sorry, I've been told several times that I need to adjust my speed and cadence to adapt to the South, and have not quite yet done that because I just haven't. So Sandra, do you have those? Do you have those
Yes.
Answers?
Yes. What was under there is that CPR and first aid is required just as it is for our DSPs, just as it is for all of for providers for the 1915C. And then the Appendix K does still apply for all of those requirements as well.
Great. Bo, I'm going to send the next question over to you. Will children have ISCs? Who will be creating plans and writing goals? Bo, can you explain how the case management works in the Katie Beckett program?
Sure, thanks. So essentially, DIDD does the intake for everybody applying for Katie Beckett. Once people apply and there's a determination made about whether they're going to go into Part B or Part A, then that really directs who provides case management from that point on. For any child who's enrolled in Part A of the program, Blue Care will administer that piece of the program, and they'll have a nurse case manager that does that piece. For anybody who enrolls in Part B of the program, DIDD will do the case management piece ongoing, and that means they will have meetings with the family. They will write the plans. They'll submit the request for service to our service. They'll submit requests for services, which we will approve and pay providers the same way we pay them now. And so essentially, the case managers for Katie Beckett will be very similar to what we do right now for the self-determination waiver. question about billing on here as well, and I see that, and I'll go ahead and take that if I can. The billing will work the same for DIDD services that you administer right now. So if you're a 1915C waiver provider, everything you do to bill in that waiver, whether that's statewide waiver, self-determination waiver, or CAC, everything you do in that waiver, you will do exactly the same for Katie Beckett in terms of billing.
And that will answer,
B.
yeah, that will that next question. And thank you, Bo. I actually asked you that question, but I wasn't unmute. So the only one who heard that was my cat who's on the dog bed right now.
Okay.
Is billing the same as ECF? I think that was answered by Bo's question previously. What are provider note requirements for services like community integrated support services? Are they the same as they are now? Bo, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm going to say that we're going to work. What we try to do, folks, is really align what we do now in the 1915 with our piece of the Katie Beckett program. So where we could, we transferred that over and tried to be very seamless about that. And so everything that the note requirements, the documentation requirements are essentially the same for like services. So community integration or community participation in 1915, the documentation requirements are going to be the same for community integration or participation in Katie Beckett Part B.
All right, let me see what else we got. Hold on. How will providers be notified of cases? So.
Okay. So essentially right now, when we have folks in our current waivers, we will basically present the family with options of providers who are willing in the area where the person resides. And so we will touch base with families, and then we will ask them to select some providers to talk to. They may reach out to you, or on behalf of the family, we will reach out to you and say, hey, are you interested in providing services to this child?
Okay, looking for, does anyone else have any other questions? How will the provider know how much of the waiver benefit is left to be used? We're getting questions in now. So Bo, back to you.
So essentially we would treat that just like we do now in terms of in terms of what the family wants. And so, you know, it may be that the family needs you or would like for you to provide supportive home care in their home. And so before we would talk to you about that, we would be having a discussion with the family about how much service they need in the home out of that budget. So, you know, you won't have to know how much is left out of their benefit. You will have to know whether or not you can provide that service. And if you do decide to provide the service in the amount that everybody agrees on, then we'll certainly get you paid for that.
Right, and then I'm going to take, Allison, I'm going to take both of your questions and kind of combine them into one. So will we receive any information about the child is one, and will there be a formal referral in writing is the other part of that question. So Bo, can you answer both of those?
Yeah, so we would send you guys information, a transition or a profile information around the child like we do now for our other waiver service, for other waivers that we do, just like self-determination waiver. We would send you information, we would send you a profile so you could see if you felt like you could serve this child.
Great.
And so that would answer the next question too. Yeah, sorry.
No problem. That will answer. So the next question we had was will this be information be shared? And I am going to actually share my screen right now. And let's see, there we go. So Katie Beckett waiver. If you go to this page, first of all, there's a lot of very helpful information about the program, what it is, the different parts. So we didn't get into a lot of that stuff today, basically out of for time. But if you are interested in more about Part A and Part B, the application process, you can find all of those resources on this page. There is a tab for provider information. A couple of things that are here is, first of all, kind of the history and program overview, the service descriptions and units, available Katie Beckett services, how do I become a provider, and then Katie Beckett program FAQs. So, so I'm not on the right browser, so I can't show this to you. This is something that that has been done, but we do have FAQs that are specific to providers that are now on that page at that link. So if you all you have questions that you feel like you didn't get answered, please, I encourage you all to look at those. These were questions that came in specifically from Tenco providers, and we did go through and answer all of them to the best of our ability. So a lot of questions may occur. When do you expect to have the first referrals out to providers? Bo, do you want to answer this question?
Yeah, so I can tell you right now, as of yesterday, we had about 650 applicants for the program. And so we have to do the assessment first. We have to determine whether or not the child meets criteria to enroll in Part B, or whether they need to be reviewed for Part A. So long story short, we approved the first child for Part B a couple of days ago. And so what we expect over the course of the next few weeks is an increase to a trickle to a steady flow of enrollments into Part B. And based on what the family wants, will really dictate how soon we reach out to you as a provider, because they need to tell us what service they want. If they want supportive home care, community integration, minor home mods, supportive home care, I may have said that. If they want any of the service you guys will provide, then we're going to be reaching out to you based on where the child lives and based on your catchment area or your service area. So long story short, I would say within the next couple of weeks, we'll start reaching out for, depending on the services people want.
Great, thank you very much, Bo. Any other questions from anyone?
This is Kim. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I did just want to say thank you for bearing with me as I was having these technological issues, and thank you for keeping the presentation moving, Kara. Thanks to the panelists for jumping in there and answering questions. I appreciate everybody's participation today.
Great. You know what, Kim? We're all a team here. So wherever we can, we're all going to help each other out, because in this crazy world, we know that we can't count on technology to always have our back. We've got a couple of other questions, and I know that if you cannot stay because we've gone long, please jump off. But because we were unable to start on time, I do want to give people the opportunity to ask questions. So. How long will it take to approve or deny a provider for the program? Sandra, do you have any insight into this?
I do. For the folks who are requesting to provide these services, we are doing our best to expedite these requests. Time is of the essence, we realize, and so we will do them as quickly as we can do them. The one thing that you need to know about applying to be a provider, it's hard to really give you a specific time frame, because much of it depends on how fast we get information back. We can usually turn information around in a day or two at the most, sometimes over a weekend. But it all depends on how fast we get the information back from the provider if we need additional information. But what I can tell you is we will commit to doing these patients as fast as we can and expediting them quickly.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Can Katie Beckett have a supported living service? Bo, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a good question. And, the long and short of it is no, that there was not a residential component built into Katie Beckett. The cap for Part B is around $10,000, so it would be very difficult to have a supported living type service with that amount of money. Above and beyond that, we're talking about children here as well. And so we typically don't provide residential services to children in waivers, with some exception.
Okay, any further questions for anyone? Okay, seeing none. First of all, thank you all for bearing with us. And we will make this presentation available on the DIDD website. And I hope you all had an opportunity to ask your questions. I'd encourage you all, if you did not have your question asked or answered, to look at those FAQs on the website. And then I also want to thank Kim, Bo, Sandra, John Hamrick, and all of the program operations team for getting on here with us today. And we hope that this will help you all as you decide or start to provide services in Part B of the Katie Beckett program. We're very excited to have this program as a part of the DIDD service package, and we are thrilled that we have our first person enrolled in the program. So we expect many more in the coming days and weeks, and I hope you guys have a good Thursday. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.